Welcome to Haunted Grove, the podcast that drags you into the darkest corners of the supernatural. Each episode delivers chilling short stories of vengeful spirits, haunted places, and things that should not exist. These are true encounters with the unknown, told to unsettle, disturb, and stay with you. Are you ready to face your fears? Then step into the grove and let the horror begin. My name is Leo. Last spring, for the first time in 3 years, I emailed my estranged sister to tell her our grandfather Alistair had passed away. My message was brief, stripped of the usual pleasantries we'd long since abandoned. The subject line simply read, "The House." Neither of us had seen Gramps in over 2 decades, not since the summer I turned 12 and she was 10. He was the last of them, and we were the sole inheritors of his small house on the foggy coast of Oregon, a place filled with the ghosts of ticking clocks. A lawyer handling the estate had called me. He used words like hoarder and neglected, and warned that the property was in a state of significant disrepair. We both lived on the other side of the country, and the thought of dealing with it felt like a sentence. During a tense follow-up call, I said to my sister, "Clara, can you even begin to imagine the mess? All those half-finished clocks, the workshop." And Clara cut in, her voice sharp. "The workshop was always tidy. Gramps was meticulous." I corrected her, trying to keep my own voice even. "You don't remember the floor? The loose board behind the main workbench, where he kept the special tools?" She replied with an icy calm that was more unsettling than shouting. "You're making that up, Leo. That's not a real memory. You're thinking of some movie. You always did have a flair for the dramatic." We argued, a familiar, pointless tug-of-war where neither of us could ever concede an inch. She ended the call, leaving the silence to ring in my ear. The loose floorboard gnawed at me. I could picture it perfectly, the slight discoloration of the wood, the notch on the side you had to press just so. I called her back a few days later, attempting a lighter tone. It backfired. "I don't know what you're trying to do," she said, "trying to plant these weird ideas in my head. But if you mention it again, you can sort out that junkyard by yourself. Don't think I don't see what this is. You have to understand, my sister has always been adrift. I built a life of right angles and solid foundations as an architect. She drifted through art communes and seasonal jobs, always sketching, always broke. I told her I was worried, that maybe she was the one with the bad memory, that something about the workshop was walled off in her mind. We had never been forbidden from the workshop, not explicitly, but if she was denying a core feature of it, maybe something happened in there. Clara's laugh was brittle. "Oh, here we go. Dr. Leo and his dime store psychology. You think you can solve my life by inventing some repressed trauma? Before you go diagnosing me, how about you figure out why you can't stand the smell of sawdust? You used to love it." She was right. The scent of cut pine, which once meant magic and creation, now made my stomach clench. I booked a flight to Oregon that night. In the end, Clara refused to fly out with me. She said she'd take a bus and get there when she got there. A classic Clara move that left all the logistics and initial burden on me. Her refusal only solidified my conviction that the workshop held some kind of answer. So 12 hours ago, I drove a rental car through a persistent coastal mist to my grandfather's house. It was smaller than I remembered, huddled against the gloom. The salt spray had eaten away at the paint, and the garden was a tangle of weeds. Gramps had been a clockmaker, a master of gears and pendulums, and his defining eccentricity was on display the moment I walked in. The house was full of clocks, mantel clocks, wall clocks, cuckoo clocks, and every single one was stopped. Each told a different, silent time. The air was thick, with the smell of dust and stagnant oil. The only real pieces of furniture were bookcases, overflowing not just with books on horology, but with stacks of old sheet music, tide charts, and strangely, dozens of manuals on beekeeping. I was heading for the back door toward the workshop when I heard a floorboard creak upstairs. My heart hammered. It was just the house settling, of course. But for a second I was a child again, listening for my grandfather's quiet footsteps. Stepping out the back, I saw the workshop. It was a small shed-like structure with a single, grimy window. The key was exactly where it used to be, on a nail hidden behind a loose shingle. Inside, the scent of sawdust and old wood was overwhelming, and I felt that familiar nausea rise. It was cluttered but organized in its own chaotic way. Tools hung from pegs, gears were sorted into little jars, and clock faces without hands stared up from workbenches. I walked to the main bench, my shoes crunching on a layer of wood shavings. I knelt, my fingers tracing the floorboards. Nothing. No notch, no discoloration, no loose board. Just solid, grimy planks. My memory had been wrong. Clara had been right. I was standing there, a strange mix of disappointment and confusion, when the back door of the main house creaked open. It was Clara. She looked tired, her artist's smock splattered with paint, a bulging duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She must have taken an earlier bus. We just looked at each other. No greeting was necessary. Her eyes flicked from my face to the floorboards and back again. "It's not there, is it?" she stated, her voice flat. "No," I said. "It's not here." I left her and went back into the main house, a profound sense of unease settling over me. I had been so sure. Had I invented it all? My gaze fell upon the centerpiece of the living room, Gramps' masterpiece, a towering grandfather clock, carved from dark cherry wood, its face inlaid with mother of pearl. He'd spent a decade building it. I remembered him tapping its side once and telling us, "This one keeps more than time, kids." At that moment, standing in the silent house, the phrase echoed with a new, ominous weight. While Clara puttered around in our old bedroom, I ran my hands over the clock's ornate carvings. And then I felt it. A tiny, almost invisible keyhole nestled in the base. The key was nowhere in sight. I tried to think, to cast my mind back. What else did he build? What else did he love? The birdhouse. A ridiculously elaborate, multi-level birdhouse he'd built for Clara one summer, which she'd adored. It still hung from a low branch of the cypress tree in the front yard. I went outside, the mist clinging to my jacket, and reached inside the main opening. My fingers closed around a small, cold iron key. Back inside, the key slid into the hidden lock with a soft click. A panel in the clock's base sprang open. It wasn't tools I found inside. It was a small tin box, the kind that used to hold fancy biscuits. It was locked with a tiny, delicate padlock. I heard a sharp intake of breath behind me. Clara stood in the doorway, her face pale. "Leo, don't," she whispered. "Please, just leave it." "Why?" "Because," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm the one who locked it. After our last visit." Her words hung in the air, more chilling than the coastal fog. I found a small screwdriver in a kitchen drawer and, ignoring her pleas, pried the flimsy lock open. Inside, there was no dark, terrible secret. At least, not at first. There was a child's drawing of our family, a collection of smooth gray stones from the beach, and a single pressed Queen Anne's lace, its white flowers browned with age. Tucked beneath it all was a small silver locket. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside there wasn't a picture. There was a tiny folded piece of paper. It was my grandfather's handwriting, elegant and precise, even on this miniature scale. It was a confession. It spoke of a neighbor's boy, a friend of mine named Sam, who used to visit. It spoke of a summer afternoon in the workshop, of a game, of a heavy shelf of clock weights that had been accidentally overturned. It spoke of panic and of a terrible, irreversible mistake. It spoke of burying a small body beneath the new floorboards he had laid himself, behind the main workbench. The special tools, I remembered, were a false memory, a screen my child's mind had created to protect itself from what I must have seen or overheard. Clara hadn't seen it happen, but she had found the locket later and understood enough to be terrified into a lifetime of silence. Behind me, Clara began to weep, deep, silent sobs she'd been holding in for 20 years. I looked up from the locket at the silent faces of the clocks that filled the room. They weren't broken or neglected. They were a memorial. My grandfather, the master of time, had stopped it, freezing the single moment his world had shattered. The object is here beside me now, on the desk of my hotel room, the little silver locket. I understand my sister now, her transience, her fear of putting down roots on ground that might not be solid. Our estrangement wasn't built on petty arguments. It was a chasm created by a truth she carried alone. I don't know what I'll do. Go to the police and destroy the memory of the kind old man who taught me to identify constellations? Or will I take this secret and bury it again, letting Sam rest in his unmarked, timeless grave? All I know for certain is that my sister and I are no longer estranged. We are bound together now, partners in a silence far deeper and darker than any argument, ticking down the seconds of a shared and terrible inheritance. And that's where we leave you for this journey into the unknown on Haunted Grove. Thank you for daring to listen to tonight's chilling tales. If these stories have lingered with you, please consider following us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave a rating or review. It truly helps more sleepless souls find their way to the Grove. Join us again in 2 weeks for another descent into the darkness. Until then, keep the lights on and stay safe.